There are a good many nearly empty streets in New York of the late 1930s and early 40s. Buffalo Avenue in Bedford-Stuyvesant, 1939, for instance, or Bergen Street in Bed-Stuy. But one thing is striking: how few cars there were on the streets 70 years ago. As indicated by this shot of East 113th Street, taken in 1943, the site of the future James Weldon Johnson houses, or Osborne Street in Brownsville, Brooklyn, city neighborhoods had astonishingly few cars parked on the curb. It was a time when kids could indeed play stickball in East Harlem. It was a time before alternate side of the street parking. A time before the great post-war economic boom that would fill the streets with automobiles and empty the walk-ups of people who fled to the suburbs. There are also an abundant number of interior shots, not only of slum dwellers whose forlorn environment NYCHA was attempting to document for purposes of slum clearance, but a good many interior glimpses of families who lived outside of the project sites, families in overcrowded, substandard tenements who were making a claim for admission into NYCHA projects. Between these two categories, the NYCHA collection constitutes one of the largest assemblages of interior views of how average New Yorkers lived in the 1930s and 1940s. How women made do in cold water flats cooking with coal stoves, washing dishes with hot water heaters. They contrast sharply with the interior views of the new project living space, the spare, picture-free walls, a reminder that project tenants had to obey the sometimes Spartan maintenance rules of the housing authority. Occasionally, the pictures testify to the forces behind the city's transformation, the zeal for reclaiming the cityscape with modern structures, a hint of the mass leftist politics behind the public housing movement's hopes for remolding the poor. Those neglected WPA murals in the basement of the Williamsburg houses, the surviving mural at the Red Hook Community Center, Philip Guston's mural at Queensbridge, and heroic sculpture of Harlem River houses. And not only the abundant snapshots of politicians engaged in ribbon cutting, but as with armed forces personnel marching through the common ways of the Fort Greene houses, their new home near the Navy Yard, a compelling reminder of the voice of national security in building habitations for strong, free men. For some, public housing projects were acts of civic patriotism. Note the groundbreaking ceremonies for the South Beach project. To a degree, the photographs hint at some of the urban problems that public housing did not directly touch upon, let alone tackle. Among the scores of projects documented during their stages of demolition and construction, there are a fair number, like this one, or here, that were contemplated by NYCHA and photographed by NYCHA staffers, but apparently never became the objects of demolition and rehousing. The collection also includes an early shot, 1956, of graffiti on West 129th Street, the Manhattanville site, and burned out abandoned cars on Sackman Street and Belmont Avenue, September 1963, both harbingers of the social turmoil in ghetto areas. The photographs extend into the 1960s and 70s with illustrations of properties meant for the West Side urban renewal area, a program that implicitly recognized that large-scale clearance had run its course, and that newer approaches, such as rehabilitation and spot renewal, would have to become the revitalization strategies of the future. The NYCHA photo collection encapsulates much of the contemporary attitudes and debates about the projects, about the role and benefits of public housing and the liberal interventionism of the LaGuardia era, from the days of the compassionate social work represented by Mary K. Simkovich, a member of the original NYCHA board, to that of Jane Jacobs, the redoubtable foe of Robert Moses and all kinds of project-itis. They reveal some of the most decrepit and forlorn images of New York in the 1930s and 1940s, along with glimpses of what appears to be decent, viable housing and neighborhoods that also met the fate of the wrecking ball, sacrificed for the broad brush clearance that made low-income housing possible. Liberal leaders like Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia and Governor Herbert Lehman made civic occasions out of groundbreaking ceremonies and dedications when government with enormous confidence embarked on the heroic structures for the modern city. They are also a reminder of what was lost amid what was gained. Witness the aerial photo of the Polo Grounds when there was underway a last sad Giants baseball game.